Greetings, stone guardians, crystal keepers, gym lovers, and rock hounds. Welcome to There's a Rock for That.
It's difficult to describe a book which is part of a very ancient tradition and philosophy. So describe a book is like to do something new, but at the same time it's something old. So
Right.
it was really hard to us when we decided to realize the book because originally the book is just it's without illustration. So to find a way to connect both for us was completely hard because we don't like to use the classical images and for instance a key or I don't know a door or whatever. We decide to use images that or pictures that are being connected with the text itself.
Right.
And that's why you can understand the images if you don't read the book.
Right. That's interesting. So this book, and Alberto, you're a medieval history professor, right?
Yes.
In your regular job. Did you
Yeah.
were you familiar with the Kybalion? Were you familiar with this book? And it really, what are we to think of it? This is 2022 right now, and this episode of There's a Rock for That is airing January 2023. We feel so far removed from it. What even
Yes.
attracted it enough to you to want to present it to a modern audience?
Well, first place because I am always be interested in those kind of in that kind of knowledge, spiritual knowledge, esoteric knowledge in the way sense, not in the bad sense, of course, and
Yeah.
of course also are related with my period, my study in medieval history. But to me, this is like something to to be close to my soul in that way. There are in some year in part of my life, I have some personal problems, so I decided to work with some people, and I discovered the Kybalion in a different way. In this point, not just like a book, normal book,
Right.
no, like a book who can open doors or windows you chose to be a different person, and the most relevant is to understand your own divinity.
Mm. To understand your own divinity. Now, I have to
Yes.
ask, how is it? You know, I don't feel like the Kybalion is a book that comes to mind right away for people. I don't. They're not advertising like go read this book. Well, hopefully they're advertising your book, this version of it. But when we're younger and stuff, and you're both from Argentina, right? How
Yes. Yes.
how how popular or how accessible are Hermetic texts in this day and age, and especially when we're younger, and usually it's the church from somewhere that's trying to do those same things that you look to this kind of book for. Usually they're trying to implant those ideas in us, what we're supposed to, how we're supposed to think. So how did you even connect with all this?
Well, I will speak shortly, and then I will let my friend speak in a lot. I I know the Kybalion by myself, actually, because
Mm,
when I was in the high school, I like to go to the library, municipal library, and
mm,
I read everything, literature, esoteric things, whatever. I don't care. I read. In
mhm.
that moment, I read, of course, in like my mind rationally, and I say, yes, it's a good book. It's some hard. I don't know if true in that way. Now, of course, it's absolutely true, but
Yeah.
I don't have also the influence of the churches, the religions, or no, I don't. Actually, I am completely free about that. I follow a personal line, which is the Indian traditions, if you like, and a practitioner of yoga, and
Yeah.
so I have an open mind to read that. And in Argentine, it's not common to find the Kybalion. However, in I suppose 5 or 6 years, um,
Mm.
uh, they show many editions of the Kybalions into the bookshops, which is incredible. Yeah, we have
Yeah.
not any idea about that. Even there are one edition with images. Of course, it's not like us, but also it's quite interesting that in 2022, 2023, the Kybalion still in the sales of the bookshop. So that's
Yeah.
what I think about the Kybalion and
It's,
my experience. I don't
mhm.
know if Lucas had something to say about.
Well, what makes the addition that the two of you did so different are the illustrations. And Lucas, can you talk about your approach to this? Because I think I was expecting, I was expecting it to look medieval. I was expecting it to look like, those beautiful 12th century and even older illuminated manuscripts that you can find from that era when we think this book came out again, I guess is one way to look at it. Why did you do the type of illustrations that you did, and can you talk about that and tell people what they have to look forward to within these pages?
Um, it's very difficult answer that. And would you imagine drawing the universe? Could you do that? Um, we
Hmm.
try to represent with these images.
These are huge ideas to try to illustrate, like these hermetic principles. So I love the way that you made it very accessible. It's not a complicated alchemical illustration that we're looking at where we think like, well, what are these things? Um, and
We represent emotions and feelings with with as images. And
yeah,
this is
well, it's
I think that even those images and feelings will not the same for everyone. You can read the book and you will feel and you will have some emotions completely different that we have or something else. That's the
yeah,
real. That's what we try to do. Not just a
yeah,
simple images and they say, yes, it's the sun, yes, it's the moon, yes, it's the star. No, We don't want that. We want that people really had a commitment with the book, not just with the book, but also with his own soul. For us, it's relevant. It's much more. It's absolutely relevant that people can't understand that they are they are light. They are all. They are a divinity inside. So no matter what you chose, for instance, you can be you can study the Kybalion, you can study the Gnosticism, you can study the Taoism, whatever you want, but all are the same. Inside us exists the true divinity. No matter what path, all paths have the same end. To know each other, to know itself. And that is the play that we decided to do. That way we work for at least 5-6 years.
Wow. That's how long it took. 6 years?
Yes.
And
we know from high school, but we start to work the book 6 years. So more than 20 years of friendship. So imagine that.
That's amazing. That's wonderful, actually. And there's a sense of that, connection, because the illustrations do really help. I think that most people, if we encounter this book, we hear about it when we're studying esotericism or we're studying hermeticism, and you can find the book, in various ways. You can buy a copy of something on Amazon, or you can just find the text. If I'm honest, the one issue I have always had that's been difficult for me to get into some of these hermetic texts is the idea of Hermes, the thrice great. I'm like, did he exist? What is this about? How can I read a book by somebody who didn't possibly live? How did he write this book? And it's like, how do we get beyond that? How do we kind of like jump over that and then get to the stuff that we can really embrace?
Well, yes, we have some similar ideas at the moment, because we say Hermes Trismegistus, or the name that you want. Of course, we don't know if that exists. We don't know anything about him. So actually, the book is, of course, was publishing in early 20th century, 20th century. And by some specialists say that one of the authors was William Atkinson, which is, but they are not clear who are the authors. But the truth is that Kybalion have some hermetic principles from those, of course, the Hermetists, but it's a mix from other traditions. That way, I say, yes, no matter what no matter what tradition you chose, the Kybalion is a good handbook for those ancient knowledge, because the 7 principles that have the book, which is the principle of mentalism, the principle of correspondence, the principle of vibrations, the principle of polarity, the principle of rhythm, the principle of cause and effect, and the principle of generations are all at the, and work at the same time inside us and in all nature. So, and when you read the book and think in Hermes, people must to think in much more than people, not much more than that Hermes in the context, in the cultural context. That is what create the atmosphere of those principles. If you can, for instance, if you can read the Mahabharata, you must to have in mind how the Indian society is.
You're right.
If you read the I don't know, the Bhagavad Gita or the Tao Te Ching, you must to think into a culture and society. So
Yeah.
that's crazy idea of in 21st century read a book with some ancient tradition and still working. I used the word work because it's like the ocean who is with the rocks, you know,
Yeah.
slowly, very slowly, and work quite slowly to disappear. And disappear what? Disappear the shadow which is inside from our eyes. And
Wow. That's a
that's
that's a beautiful analogy. You know, and
you.
I think that it is what is kind of remarkable. You're right that, you know, you have these ancient ideas and they're still applicable today. They seem timeless. They seem they seem like universal truths. And you know, we've had a few iterations of some of these ideas come out in various ways. I think a lot of people are familiar with The Secret, you know, that made a big splash, you know, some years ago. Do you see a
Yeah.
connection with modern esotericism to this? Is this like one of the foundations is built on what's contained in the Kybalion?
Well, yes, not. I think that there is a connection, but kind of. For instance, you know The Secret, the book, The Secret.
Yeah.
Well, The Secret is based mostly in the Kybalion. It's just like a copy. However, what The Secret doesn't say is that exists something more. It's fine. It's all right. Um, uh, my mind creates everything. It's right. Yes. My soul creates, of course. But that implies that we must to accept also that if we think something, that what we think have an effect, and sometimes the people forget the effects that they think. For instance,
Right.
I have $1 million, you know, for instance, but I say an example, of course. People say I have $1 million, have a big house, many cars, but you know what effects could happen with all that, and The Secret doesn't show us. The Kybalion, yes, that's why they say there are principles of cause and effect. Be careful which one you think.
Yeah. Yeah. What about the principle of gender? You know, because I was reading the book and I thought, oh my gosh, that has to be fascinating to try to get
Well,
across in this day and age when we're the way we think about gender is so different and evolving and constantly evolving. What was the challenge in approaching that particular part of it?
yes, well, when we are doing the images, and also when we start to reading, when we understand that the word gender is used in a different way, because what is masculine and feminine is completely different. The acceptions in modern times are completely. The Kybalion understand that those two words are connected, related between. They are not separate. So work separate, but also work together at the same time. It's not, for instance, everyone have part of his masculine, of what is the masculine and the feminine. In Spanish, if you allowed me to say something more, we have in Spanish we have lo femenino, lo masculino, to say a woman and a girl, but or a woman or man, but also we have which is el femenino y el masculino. The pronoun is changed. Lo y el. That's a difference. In English doesn't have this difference, but that's why the concept of feminine and masculinity is completely different. We work in a way that the union of the feminine and the masculine, it's the union of the all. You know,
I like
for instance,
that.
You know, it's not just a question. It's not just a matter of say yes, the woman something and the man something else. No, it's not saying. The Kybalion explains that the feminine and masculine are inside us, and we must understand that it's part of any person, and it's not like modern times are using as an ideology, which is complicated and fertile.
Oh yeah,
and fertile.
And you know, the language, you know, illustrating that in Spanish, the masculine and feminine words and pronouns and stuff is really a good point. I think that's something I first discovered really young when I studied Latin, and then when I studied French. And you know, you see it in Spanish. You see, you know, gender being used as a part of language, and nobody thinks about it. You know, objects, you know, like a lamp could be feminine. You know, so I always thought that was an interesting thing that I noticed early on, but it wasn't until, you know, now, our decade now, that, you know, now we're really digging into what does that mean and all different ways to kind of look at it. You know, the thing that really struck me about this is that, you know, reading through the book, and I've read it before. I read it online. You know, I think there was the sacred text site. We all went to that site, you know, to read all the ancient books and everything. But I really did think that both of you did such a great job in making it feel like I wasn't nervous reading it. And that's a weird thing to say, but sometimes, you know, you approach you know, one of these hermetic texts, and I'm like, oh geez, oh boy, you know, am I gonna get this at all? You know, but this is like, it's easy. Do you think this is a good place to start if you're interested in esotericism, if you're interested in hermeticism? Is a Kybalion a good, like, you know, first place to go, or what would you recommend if it's not?
Yes.
Lucas.
We are discussing something. Who speak? Yes. Well, it's in first place. We thank your word about our work. So yeah, we thank you very much. You are very kind to us. Yeah, that's the truth. We are very comfortable talking. Yes, could be the. It's quite. I don't know how can the Kybalion, of course, is a different book, or edition is a different book from other Kybalion. But the message, no matter what the ages of people, and no matter what, if the first time, the second time, the third, the 10th time, no, it's not relevant. What is important is a master teach me that the true comprehensions of the things is if you feel, and you don't have any word to explain, that it's right, that is correct, that is true. And when we work the Kybalion, we work with the Kybalion, and we have that in mind. We could do a book with explanation. For instance, the concept of gender could be da 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 da. But that is not our interest, because this book or ancient book are to read in the original expressions. So so what you said is true. Yes, the first time that I read the book, well, the first time no, just when I read again with another capacity, another comprehension of the life, which is much more in my life. And it's not easy also. We understand that this is a book to read in a different way, and is to read like the life, slowly but constantly.
Right. I like that. And sometimes, things affect us differently as we get older and we go back to them. We can understand it better from our life experience. Could you, for our audience, could you give them a sense of just, what some of these principles are? What is mentalism? That's one of the first principles, I think.
Yes, well, there are seven principles. The first principle, which is the principle of mentalism, is all is mind, which is all is a creation of our own soul. So, and everything what we are creating, or even our own wishes are in mind. They are already existed before we think.
Wow.
They are pre-existent. So the first principle is that all is mind, and the relevant expression is that way. The quote or sentence of the Hermetis is that the lips of wisdom are closed except to the ears of understanding. So this is the key sentence to understand the Kybalion, and to understand also the principle, because to do that we must to have a careful dissemination of the truth. This is a sentence quite relevant, because for instance, in yoga exists the word satya, which is truth, but a monk teach me that we must to say the truth, but with some compassion. Say the truth with compassion.
Yeah.
Always say, but with compassion.
Yeah.
So this is the first. This is the principle. the principal sentences. But what is mind? Because the universal is mental. That's why called the principle of mentalism.
Okay.
Like the universe is mental. We are mental. We are mental creation, and also we have the ability to create. We have the possibility to create. So that's why what I already said. Be careful what you think.
Yeah, because you could be creating.
Yes, we are co-creator actually. So that's is something that many people never have in mind when began with this kind of esoteric study.
Right.
They say, yes, I can do everything, but please be responsible of your act and your things.
Yeah. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Exactly. So this is no many people understand, and that way I say to some young people who work with me that you must, all of you must to be responsible of your action and be careful what you think, and please try to do what you can do, not all, just what you can do, because
Yeah.
the human being can't to do all things at the same time.
Right.
Can't.
Right. Not well.
Not well. Cool. Complete. Yes. Cool. And this is the principle of mentalism. The second principle is the principle of correspondence. And the Kybalion have a sentence which is as above, so below, as below, so above. So, which is completely clear. If you have, exactly, if you do something, you have a consequence. And it's much more similar. Of course, if I can use my professions, I can say that it's like the city of God or Saint Augustine. You know, he say that exist two cities, the terrenal city and the heavenly city, and are like a mirror. If the earth are sins, bad actions, that is because the action of the man and must to be a response in heaven when you go to heaven. If go to heaven, who have San Augustine was a very particular people. Half of his life spent in a luxurious life, and then became into a great Christian writer. But this is it's a joke, but it's true actually. So, but the principle of correspondence is that, to be every action has an effect, which is related with another principle, which is the cause and effect, are related, of course. The third principle is the principle of vibration. The Kybalion say, nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. It's like the little stone who arrived to the lake and began to expand. Everything vibrates. If you, for instance, if you have a bad day, you will know that everything that you have with your, I don't know, the daily things, what is wrong, or people close in a bad way. But if you are fine, you go to the life with a smile, everything change. Of course, everything change when one change, of course. But that is the principle of vibration. And those manifestations of energy is produced by ourselves. That way the Kybalion say first you, and then you can change the circumstances. This is a secret, if you know of the Kybalion. But to understand that, you must read the book, not you, those
Right.
who read. And the fourth principle is the principle of polarity. And the Kybalion says everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same, opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extreme meet all truth, but half truth, all paradox may be reconciled. So that is our life. Every action is like a coin. Now you have two faces, but it's a coin.
Yeah.
And that is what explains the Kybalion, you know. Exists that also exists if you say, for instance, the I will say something and I forget. The yin and yang, if you can see, that exists a little circle in the middle. That is because there are no one is entirely good and no one is entirely bad. We have
That's
that
a hard
polarity.
one. Yeah. I think
Exactly.
that is the most difficult, really, because we expect that. We always expect that. We expect someone good who does good things to be good all the way through. And they're not usually, because we're human,
Exactly.
right? You know?
Exactly. We are humans. Yes. I always say you can have a bad day. It's fine. It's fine. Everyone can could have a bad day. But be careful. Don't be careful. Don't convert into an habit.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And
Don't make
that is
having a
very
bad day a habit.
exactly. Everyone can have a bad day. Yes, I have already tried, but always be in a propositive vibes, in propositive life, because to be alive is a truly gift.
Yeah. The alternative is not so good.
Yes, and no one understand that. Many people doesn't understand that, and because we understand, because we had passed some personal problems, and we decided to change or see the life, you not anger, but with a smile, and the world changed. Actually, we are very I don't know if I say it, but we are proud of our own work because it's a very long way. But we try to do our best to be to try to be at the end of the life a happy people, a happy person, and to be in peace with, mostly with myself, actually, or self.
Yeah.
That the five principle is the principle of dreams. The Kybalion says everything flows out in and in, everything has its ties, all things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifest in everything. The measures of the swings to the right is the measure to the swing of the swing to the left. Dreams compensate. And that is one of the other principles of dreams. Everything have his the right distance between every action. Nothing is much more than the action between. There is not a difference between the action, the cause, and the effect. Everything has related. That's the principle of dream, and always is like constantly. Everything is permanently working. Like they like life. You stay,
Right. It
you rest.
doesn't just stand still. It's kind of how I
Exactly.
took that. It's like there's really no, you can't just stop and say, I'm staying here. Nothing's going to change. This is perfect.
Like,
It
yeah,
doesn't work
even
that way.
even when you, yeah, yes, even when one is into the bed, you know, you're in the dream, but something else happened. That's why
Yeah.
life is continuing. So the principle of cause and effect, every cause has its effect, every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance, it's but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causations, but nothing escapes the law. Because that way we say what the Kybalion say is yes, you have a cause, you do something, there is an effect. That cause, the cause and effect are already created in the mind of the universe. The human being that doesn't have that ability by now. I suppose that with the
Yeah.
time, the human being could be much more spiritual. I am completely sure of that. But I don't know when, but I'm completely sure. That's the sixth principle. And the seventh principle is, of course, the principle of gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principle. Gender manifests on all planes. That's what we said much more earlier. You know, those
Yeah.
two, masculine and feminine, are inside everyone, and we must too understand that it's not a matter of ideology and it's not a matter of sexualization. It's not a sexual.
Right.
It's much more
Yeah.
deeply. The clients are explain that it's it must to understand those principles are pure, like the soul, and
Yeah.
that's we must to use it to understand both the women and to understand the men.
Yeah.
So it's something that work inside, but like how can I say, like modern times without Chaplin, you know, working
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah.
And that is our body. It's a perfect machine, our body.
Right. I like that. We are, you know, I had a question for Lucas. When we look at the work in this book and everything, I mean, I think that, yeah, we use it to help develop ourselves, to help to maybe understand ourselves and the world around us. How does how did working on this affect your creative process as an illustrator and as an artist?
Yes, Shiva.
uh, it was a challenge to me design or draw that this book. I have to read the Kybalion a lot of time. This is I don't know if I can explain to make that. This is very difficult to me. This is the way to, I'm I'm express myself. But like I said, this represent a challenge to me. Represent feelings, the law of the universe,
Well, it's a lot to
and
take on.
represent conditions or states mental with illustrations. And this is uh, I'm I'm so proud of this work we made together. this I have to be more.
Well, this, you know, I think are you guys, is this the only thing that you guys are going to do? I mean, there's a lot of, you know, other Hermes thrice greats that you can work on. What's next?
Where
Pomander?
we are working. We are working in other books, actually, and of course under secret. But we are working on in some books about classical literature, and also yes, and 19th century, most of them. Um, and
Wow.
of course, we are on other spiritual world and other spiritual books, and all the books are we're gonna be illustrated by my friends. And what he
Yay!
said is, thank you. Yeah, this is very. We are very glad to talk with you. We are a lovely person.
Oh, thank you.